They tell you that if you work hard, stay focused, and never give up, you'll make it. They show you pictures, images so perfect you can almost touch them. A luxury car cruising down an empty coastal highway. A high-rise apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows. A smiling couple clinking champagne flutes on a rooftop. This, they whisper, is success. But you've noticed something, haven't you? When the screen turns off and the room goes quiet, there's a strange emptiness. A silence not just around you, but inside you. You've been doing everything right, pushing forward, checking the boxes, but somehow, it doesn't feel like enough. Not quite. You're not alone. There's a gnawing feeling many carry, a tension that words rarely reach. It doesn't scream. It hums in the background, like an engine left running in the distance. You go to work, you meet deadlines, you smile at parties, but somewhere deep inside, a question keeps rising. Is this it? This question doesn't come all at once. It creeps in slowly. It begins the first time you reach a goal you were told would make you happy, and nothing changes. You feel a rush of pride, maybe relief, then silence, that hollow silence. So you keep going. Maybe the next milestone will do it. The next raise, the next apartment, the next relationship. But the silence doesn't leave, it grows. You begin to sense there's something wrong, not with you, but with the promise you were sold. They never told you that success, as defined by society, has a darker underbelly. They didn't mention how it can become a trap, how it can keep you running endlessly on a treadmill, always chasing, never arriving. It's not just that people are tired, it's that they're exhausted, spiritually, emotionally, and mentally, while pretending they're fine. You see it in the eyes of people who have made it, the influencers with the picture-perfect life, who quietly check into rehab, the executives who built empires, only to find themselves alone at the top, the athletes and actors who speak of emptiness despite their fame. They have the world's applause, and yet they look away when asked if they're happy. Why? Why does a society so obsessed with success produce so much dissatisfaction? The answer is buried, hidden under layers of distraction and conditioning. But you can feel it, that something doesn't add up, that the story isn't complete. And maybe, just maybe, you're ready to hear the truth. But before we get there, we need to rewind. Not by a few months, not even a few years. We have to go back centuries, because the deception isn't new. It's just been repackaged for a modern world. There was a time when success wasn't measured in cars, followers, or bank balances. Long before the stock markets and skyscrapers, people lived by different standards. Wisdom, connection, service, courage. These were once the markers of a meaningful life. A blacksmith wasn't admired for being rich, but for being skilled and honest. A healer wasn't famous, but she was trusted. A storyteller wasn't popular, but his words moved generations. Then something changed. Not overnight, not suddenly. It shifted like the tides, gradual, unnoticeable, until one day we woke up in a world where nothing was ever enough. It began with the rise of industry. Machines replaced hands. Output became everything. We stopped asking, is it good? And started asking, how much can it make? Efficiency became the new god. Time was money. And people became units, resources to be optimized, ranked, and compared. But still, that wasn't the trap. Not yet. The real deception came later, wrapped in the smooth language of hope and possibility. It came through shiny billboards and smiling commercials, through self-help books and motivational speeches, through curated Instagram feeds and viral TED Talks. It said, you can be anything, you can have everything. Just work harder, just want it more. At first it felt empowering, limitless, a new horizon. But beneath, it was a subtle poison. Because if success was always attainable, then failure was always your fault. If you weren't happy, you just hadn't tried hard enough. If you were exhausted, it meant you weren't disciplined. If you felt lost, you were just being negative. This is how the trap was sealed. Not with chains, but with shame. And shame, when quiet enough, can last a lifetime. So people pushed harder. They filled calendars. They drank coffee to stay awake and wine to fall asleep. They built resumes, bought planners, watched productivity hacks on YouTube. They became their own brands. They marketed themselves. They optimized their mornings and monetized their hobbies. They made goals. They chased dreams. And slowly, they forgot how to rest. Not because they didn't want to, but because rest began to feel like failure. You see, the lie of modern success is not just that it promises fulfillment. It's that it redefines your worth by your output. Not who you are, but what you can prove. Not how you live, but what you can show. This lie has been sold so beautifully, so masterfully, that few even question it. It's baked into every school speech, every graduation ceremony, into every slogan and every sales pitch, into every "you got this" hashtag. But here's the strange part. If you look closely, you'll see cracks in the facade. A record number of people are burning out. Depression rates are higher than ever. Anxiety is no longer an exception. It's a norm. Therapists are overbooked. Sleep is rare. Peace is a luxury. And still, the system insists you're just one hustle away from happiness. But what if that's not true? What if the chase isn't broken because you haven't caught the prize? What if the prize itself is hollow? What if the game you've been playing was rigged from the start? What if the definition of success you inherited was designed not to empower you, but to control you? Because here's the unspoken truth. A society driven by endless achievement needs people who are never satisfied. Satisfied people don't buy more. Satisfied people don't compete blindly. Satisfied people don't stay in toxic jobs. They don't fear missing out. They don't become addicted to likes or products or titles. Satisfied people become dangerous to a system built on insecurity. So you were taught to chase, always chase, but never arrive. Because arrival would mean asking new questions. It would mean redefining life on your own terms. And that, for the system, is a risk. But that's also where your freedom begins. Not by climbing higher, but by stepping back. By asking a question most never dare to ask. What if everything I was told about success is a lie? Don't answer it yet. Let it sit with you. Let it rise inside you like a tide. We're not here to give easy answers. Not yet. We're here to peel back the layers. And as we go deeper, the deception will begin to unravel, one thread at a time. You want to know the truth. That's why you're still here. But truth doesn't arrive like a flash of lightning. It's more like the cracking of ice, slow, eerie, and irreversible. Once it starts, it doesn't stop. So let's keep going. The first real crack in the illusion often comes quietly, not with tragedy or loss, but with a simple, haunting realization. You've been living someone else's story. You chose a path, maybe even excelled at it, but deep down, it never felt like yours. It was safe. It was admired, but it never truly belonged to you. You did what was expected. You followed the map handed to you. The right school, the right job, the right partner. You succeeded on paper. But paper lies, because even when all the boxes were checked, there was still that silent question echoing in the back of your mind. Why does this not feel like living? It's not your fault. You were conditioned, like all of us. It began early, when you were still young enough to believe that play was the point of life, that joy didn't need to be earned, that being alive was reason enough to smile. But then the adults came, with their rules and their warnings. Don't waste time. Be realistic. Success takes sacrifice. You didn't even know what success meant, but you knew it was important. So you started performing, for grades, for praise, for approval. That's how the system grooms you. And make no mistake, it is a system. One designed not to awaken you, but to program you, not to help you think, but to help you comply. The classroom becomes the first factory. Rows of desks, bells that ring, authority unquestioned, obedience rewarded, curiosity redirected. It's not education, it's indoctrination. The goal is simple: create producers, consumers, workers, not philosophers, not artists, not visionaries. Those are dangerous. They ask too many questions. So from the beginning, you're trained to compete, not cooperate, to memorize answers, not explore questions, to chase validation, not truth. By the time you reach adulthood, the cage is invisible, but it's there. You think you're free because you can choose between iPhones, because you can pick your major, because you can swipe right or left. but you're still on the track. And the track only leads one way, forward. Never pause, never reflect, never doubt. Because if you ever stop to ask why, the illusion starts to unravel. Why do we tie our value to productivity? Why does business feel like virtue? Why is exhaustion worn like a badge of honor? The answers are uncomfortable because they reveal something we don't want to admit. We have been conditioned to serve the machine, not ourselves. The machine doesn't care if you're happy. It doesn't care if you sleep, or if your relationships fall apart, or if you've forgotten how to laugh. It only cares that you keep moving, that you keep buying, that you keep chasing. Chasing what? That's the trick. The target always moves. First, it's good grades, then it's a degree, then a job, then a better job, then a house, then a bigger house, then a promotion, then retirement where, finally, you're allowed to enjoy life. If there's anything left of you to enjoy it. This isn't living. This is slow, sanitized self-erasure. But the system disguises it well. It doesn't whip you. It seduces you. It flatters your ambition. It rewards your hustle. It sells you inspiration like candy. Success stories, life hacks, top 10 habits of billionaires. But the deeper truth is rarely spoken. The game was never designed for your fulfillment. It was designed for your output. This is why true satisfaction feels dangerous, because it threatens the cycle. If you wake up and realize that you don't need more, what happens to the market? What happens to the industries built on your insecurity, your self-doubt, your fear of falling behind? They vanish. So instead, you are kept hungry. Hungry for approval, for applause, for affirmation, for anything that tells you you're enough. But here's the irony. You were always enough, even before the trophies, even before the accolades. You just weren't told that, because content people don't feed the machine. And here's the most painful part. Most of this was never said outright. No one handed you a manual. No one whispered in your ear, "Forget who you are." The deception was more elegant than that. It came in stories, in TV shows where the rich were admired, no matter how empty their lives were, in songs that equated money with freedom, in social media posts that celebrated hustle while ignoring healing, in family gatherings where "what do you do?" always meant "how much are you worth?" These stories became your script, not because you believed them at first, but because they were everywhere. And when a story is all you ever hear, it becomes truth. But now, you're beginning to question it. And that's where change begins. Because to question the story is to reclaim the pen. Let's go deeper. Have you ever noticed how success is often portrayed as a destination? A mountaintop, a finish line, a throne. But here's the secret no one tells you. There is no arrival. There is no point where the world claps and says, "You've made it, now you can be at peace." Ask anyone who's climbed the ladder. They'll tell you, the higher you go, the more the goalpost moves. You thought 6 figures would do it. Try 7, then 8, then impact, then legacy, then immortality. It never ends, because the system profits from your perpetual striving. But you don't have to play that game, because once you see the pattern, you can break it. Not by rejecting ambition, not by moving to a cave, but by choosing your own definition. You see, there's nothing wrong with achievement, with excellence, with building and dreaming and doing. The danger is when those things become your identity, when you forget that you are not your metrics, that your worth isn't measured in followers or paychecks or headlines. That success, real success, is not a thing to be reached, but a way of being. And that's the shift they don't want you to make, because the moment you define success for yourself, the system loses its grip on you. You stop buying what they sell. You stop comparing your life to strangers. You stop running races that don't lead anywhere. But let's be honest, it's not easy, because escaping the illusion means facing some hard truths. It means grieving the years you spent chasing shadows. It means disappointing people who loved the old version of you. It means risking ridicule from those still asleep. But it also means freedom. The kind of freedom you can't buy. The kind that whispers to you in the quiet of the night and says, "This is real. This is yours." Are you ready for that? Are you ready to walk away from a story that never served you? Are you ready to write your own? The path won't be simple. It won't be instant, but it will be yours. And that is where the real story begins. You're still here. That tells me something important. You're not just curious. You're ready to look deeper, to sit with discomfort, to see the world for what it is, not what you were told it was. So let's keep going. Let's talk about the institutions, the gears behind the illusion. See, no lie, this big survives on its own. It needs a support system, a network of structures to repeat it, echo it, enforce it. And the first institution to carry the message is one we all pass through: school. We like to think of education as noble, as a path to knowledge. But behind the posters and the pep rallies lies a hidden agenda, one that most never see because they're too young to question it and too old to escape it once they realize. Look at the design of a typical classroom. Rows of desks, one authority figure, bells dictating time, rigid subjects, a focus on standardization, obedience over originality, memorization over exploration. From the start, you're trained not to ask, "What do I love?" but "What's the correct answer?" Creativity, only if it fits the rubric. Rest, only after achievement. Individuality, as long as it doesn't disrupt the system. And slowly, your inner compass begins to falter. You stop listening to your curiosity and start listening to pressure. You study for grades, not growth. You pick majors for status, not passion. You plan careers for approval, not meaning. By the time you graduate, most of your choices are no longer yours. But the conditioning doesn't stop there. You move into the workforce, a world dressed in buzzwords and laced with invisible chains. Team player, high performer, self-starter. It all sounds positive, motivating. But underneath, the message is clear. Be productive, be agreeable, be tireless. And above all, be replaceable. Because the truth is, most jobs are not designed for human thriving. They're designed for efficiency, for profit, for scalability. And if you stop performing, even for a moment, the machine moves on without you. Yet even here, the illusion persists. You're told your work is your worth. Your title is your identity. Your output is your value. And just like that, another piece of your soul is traded for a paycheck. But you still chase success, because everywhere you look, someone is telling you it's within reach if you just push a little harder. Enter the media. They are the storytellers of our age, the modern-day shamans, and they are not neutral. The media doesn't reflect reality, it shapes it. The shows you watch, the ads you scroll past, the influencers you follow, they all play their part in the great deception. Look closely. How many movies have you seen where success is a mansion, a company, a climax of applause? How many songs glorify wealth as the ultimate freedom? How many times have you been told to fake it till you make it? It's not an accident, it's design. Because media doesn't just sell products, it sells values. And the most profitable value of all: you are not enough. That single idea has built empires. Because if you believe you're not enough, you'll spend your life trying to fill the void with things, with titles, with validation. But the void isn't out there, it's inside. And no external success will ever silence it. You've seen this firsthand, haven't you? The promotion that felt empty. The purchase that gave you a high for a moment, then disappeared. The compliment that didn't quite reach the part of you that needed it most. That's because the success you were chasing was never meant to fulfill you. It was meant to distract you from the deeper work, from the real questions. Like, what do I truly want? What does success look like to me? What am I willing to leave behind in order to reclaim myself? But society doesn't want you to ask those questions, because the moment you start thinking for yourself, you become harder to control. You become unpredictable, unmanageable. And for institutions built on conformity, that is dangerous. So they offer you noise. Constant, deafening noise. Podcasts, news, content, updates, emails, likes, alerts. Anything to keep you from hearing the one voice they can't control, your own. And that's where the real war is being fought. Not on battlefields, not in politics, but in your mind, in your attention, in your soul. Because if they can keep you distracted, they can keep you asleep. And if you stay asleep, you'll never realize you were dreaming. That's the game, and it's rigged in ways so subtle. You mistake the rules for reality. They give you just enough hope to keep going. A bonus, a raise, a like. Tiny doses of dopamine to keep you chasing. And if you fall behind, they make it feel like your fault. You didn't work hard enough. You didn't want it enough. You didn't manifest it. But the truth is darker, because even those who win the game often lose. The millionaire who still feels like a fraud. The celebrity who can't sleep without pills. The entrepreneur who dreads every day of the company they built. These aren't anomalies. They're warnings, but no one hears them, because society is too busy applauding the surface. Smiling faces, highlight reels, perfect branding. But behind the curtain, burnout, emptiness, collapse. And yet the show goes on, because the system cannot afford for you to wake up. Because if enough people wake up, the entire illusion crumbles. So what do? You resist. Quietly, boldly. You begin to question every definition you were handed. Not with anger, but with clarity. You start noticing how much of your ambition is actually yours. How much of your stress comes from goals you never chose. How many of your fears were planted in you, not born from you. This is the beginning of your liberation. Not a revolution in the streets, but a revolution within. Because the most radical act in a world built on performance is to simply be whole. Not perfect, not polished, just whole. And in that wholeness, you rediscover something powerful. That success is not a destination. It's not a metric. It's not something to chase. It's something to live every day on your terms. And suddenly, the world begins to shift. Not because the system's changed, but because you did. You stopped waiting for permission. You stopped outsourcing your worth. You stopped running someone else's race. And in doing so, you became something terrifying to the machine. You became free. So here we are. The final stretch, the last layer. If you've made it this far, it means something inside you refused to look away. Something deeper than doubt. Something older than ambition. A memory. That sense that life has become a loop. Wake, work, scroll, sleep, repeat. It's the absence of joy. Not the dramatic kind, but the subtle kind. The kind where a cup of tea can feel sacred. Where a moment of laughter feels like eternity. Where time slows down, because you're no longer trying to outrun it. The cost is a numbness that slowly becomes normal. But numbness isn't peace. It's the body's way of coping with too much unprocessed truth. So let's name the truth now. Let's say what no one else will say. You don't have to be impressive to be worthy. You don't have to achieve to be loved. You don't have to chase anything to deserve rest. Because real success, it isn't loud. It isn't flashy. It isn't found in the eyes of the crowd. It's found in the quiet decision to live a life that feels true. Let's talk about what that means. Truth isn't always pretty. Sometimes it's inconvenient. Sometimes it disappoints others. Sometimes it breaks the narratives you built your life around. But it's yours. And once you start living in it, the world becomes real again. To redefine success as something slower, softer, deeper. Maybe your version of success isn't a mansion, but a morning without anxiety. Maybe it's a partner who sees you, not just your resume. Maybe it's doing work that fills you with light, even if it doesn't fill your bank account. Maybe it's having enough, not more, just enough. That's the revolution. Choosing enough in a world that screams for more. You'll be called lazy. You'll be called naive. But you'll know the truth, because nothing is more radical than being content in a system that profits from your dissatisfaction. This is where the real story begins. The one you write yourself, without permission, without applause. Maybe you walk away from the career you spent a decade building. Maybe you let go of friendships that only exist in your old persona. Maybe you move slower, speak softer, listen more. Maybe you stop proving yourself and start being yourself, not because it's strategic, but because it's sacred. Let the world keep its scripts. Let the noise keep shouting. Let the crowd keep chasing. You let yourself be human again. Not perfect, not optimized, just real. And in that return to yourself, you become a mirror, a reflection for others, still trapped in the dream. They'll see your peace and question their panic. They'll feel your presence and doubt their performance. And maybe, just maybe, they'll stop running too. Because awakening spreads. It doesn't need a stage. It doesn't need a slogan. It just needs one person to say, I choose a different way. That person is you. And this is not the end of the story. It's the beginning of the only one that ever mattered. Yours.